states expected to grow by 5% this year and in 2022. Meanwhile, Bloomberg's COVID resilience ranking showed that the Philippines is still the worst place to be amid the pandemic in October. This is the second straight month that the country is on the bottom of the list of 53 economies tracked. This October snapshot showed that while other ASEAN nations continue to rank low, the Philippines fares among the worst on vaccine coverage, with just about 26% of the population covered, amid challenges in bringing the shots to areas outside of the bigger cities. Now, a Pasay City Court has recognized PAL's Chapter 11 filing in a U.S. bankruptcy court. PAL filed the petition for recognition in September to ensure that the Philippine legal system will recognize all proceedings and decisions rendered by the foreign court in its Chapter 11 case. But the Pasay City Special Commercial Court said its recognition of the foreign filing will not affect the right of PAL's local creditors to commence or continue liquidation or claims proceedings. Meanwhile, PAL Holdings says the fresh capital it will receive from Buona Sorte will be plowed into the embattled airline. Lucitan's private firm, Buona Sorte Holdings, earlier confirmed that it will inject $255 million in fresh and additional capital into the parent company of PAL. Now, aside from the equity infusion, Buona Sorte will also extend a 5-year loan to PAL that's amounting to $250 million. Quick check on the slide in the markets here, down 0.3%, closing in at 7,200 levels. Yet again, almost flattish. There, recall that yesterday we had already started this decline with the rest of the Asian markets. There were a lot of regulatory woes over in China, and according to Phil Stock's profit taking ensued. Still, there was net foreign buying yesterday that climbed to 184 million pesos, and this according to Darren Pangan. The market will continue to move range bound between 7,000 and 7,450. In some sectors to be watching out for here, let's kick off with the property space. This according to JLL, Jones Lang LaSalle. Office leasing had shrank in the third quarter. That was by 35.7% year on year. That's to the tune of 72,000 square meters. The issue here, of course, is the work from home setup persisting. A lot of occupiers still uncertain about how the work environment is going to be. Office leasing decisions had probably been pushed back until a year later this year, or even by next year, according to JLL. You can see the property counter down by 0.5%. Another one to be watching out for are the miners, and they are down by 2.12% in the first 12 minutes of trade. Very interestingly, we have a couple of strands on the miners here. You've got, first of all, a report coming from the Manila Bulletin saying that there might be a possibility that the ban on the administrative order, of course, on the open pit mining might actually be ended, and is awaiting the signature of Environment Secretary Roy Simato. We'll be watching that very closely here, but of course we're going to be watching how the stocks are going to be moving in relation to that. And nevertheless, at the same time, you also have a report from the Center for Energy, Ecology and Development saying that the country's pipeline of coal capacity fell by 43% during this 10-month period until the end of June, after the Energy Department halted greenfield coal projects a year ago. So quite some tension between those wanting, of course, these coal projects banned and those, of course, wanting to end the open pit mining ban. So very interesting there. The mining counter, again, as I mentioned, down by 2.12%. Let's check in on the other headlines. NEDA expects infrastructure spending to be sustained in the next administration. This comes after the tax reform enhanced its ability to finance projects. NEDA Secretary Carl Chua expects the medium-term infrastructure budget to be around 5% of GDP. While the government has so far focused on road and transport infrastructure projects, Chua also identified digital and IT as priority infrastructure for the next administration. Now, recall that government spending on infrastructure grew over 44% to 570 billion pesos in the first 8 months of the year. This as it set a 1.02 trillion peso infrastructure budget for 2021. Now, a World Bank report found that the asset value of Philippine mangroves has halved over 2 decades leading up to 2018. That's despite global trends seeing a rise in the overall value of mangroves. The asset value of mangroves declined by 50% from its $10.8 billion value estimate in 1995 to just about $5.4 billion in 2018. The World Bank report found that the Philippines, along with Jamaica, Cuba, and Thailand, lose considerable value amid a decline in mangrove cover and coastal population density. Meanwhile, the value of mangroves increased the fastest in China, Vietnam, Bangladesh, and Taiwan, where mangrove coverage increased. With energy sources now being questioned, sustainability issues are in sharp focus, not just in the mining sector, but in every sector. Here to share with us the latest on how the Philippines is doing on that front from a consumer viewpoint, we have with us Catherine Chua. She is the Sustainability Manager of Tetra Pak Philippines. Good morning, Ms. Catherine, and welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Catherine, let's kick off with your 2021 sustainability report. What are the
Mhm.
key findings, not just in global trends, but specifically here in the Philippines? How are we doing when it comes to sustainability in our consumption habits?
All right, so in terms of the 2021 sustainability report, it mainly reinforces our ambition and commitment to sustainability. In fact, leading the sustainability transformation is at the forefront of our ambitions. So together with our partners locally, our customers locally, and the government that we are in, we aim to accelerate the sustainable innovation by maximizing use of renewable materials, minimizing the carbon impact of our own operations, enabling greater access to safe food while contributing to food waste reduction, and driving action to develop sustainable recycling value chains.
Okay, Miss Catherine, let's take a step back. And I just want to understand what are the recycling habits of Filipinos? I mean, when you walk around the streets, you still unfortunately see so much trash. In the
Yeah.
streets, I don't even know whether my neighbors are really segregating their trash. Has this improved? Has it gotten worse? Of course, COVID has, developed all of this single-use plastic, which we were trying to already get rid of for purposes, medical purposes, hygiene purposes. What are the trends that you're seeing?
All right, so that's a great question. Sustainability is becoming an increasingly hot topic for all of consumers now. But I guess we can segment the consumer base to three main categories. So I guess we have the environmentalists, or those that are really taking an active part in lowering their carbon footprint. They are mindful with what they consume, the products that they buy. So that's one. And we see that this is actually a growing segment. And then we have the middle, which is like the eco-aware, but I guess they aren't that active with regards to becoming proactive in segregating or being mindful. I guess they have their own reasons as well. But I think this segment as well is also growing because of the challenges that we see every day regarding climate change. And the third segment is still the eco doubters. I guess they are sustainability is still not at the top of their priority list, again for their own respective reasons. But we see that there is a shift from the eco doubters becoming more aware, and those that are more aware are becoming more active. So slowly, this shift also means that there is this responsibility as well for organizations to meet these demands from these end consumers.
Okay, what are the catalysts to change the behavior and how to get those echo doubters into tomorrow just waking up and starting to do the right thing? I mean, for me, like you mentioned, it seems to be second nature, but apparently it's not the case. There's still a lot of people that are not complying, that don't really believe in having to have a sustainable lifestyle.
I guess the most direct is that if they experience climate change but on their own personal in their own personal lives, because I guess with the climate change, all of this data that's coming out in the market, right? It's all data, but once someone actually feels the impact of climate change, like flooding or the super typhoons that we constantly get year in and year out, I guess this starts to drive people to think, okay, with regards to how I consume the products that I use, is this really sustainable for the generations to come? So I think that's the most direct catalyst, I suppose, that you can see, which will change behavior.
How are you connecting with government programs, and have you seen the government improve in our quest for sustainability? We always report on the sources of energy, renewable energy, and now there's this debate on coal being back in the picture after having finally been banned. So how are they assisting in the recycling program? Are there much more initiatives that are going on with the private and public sector?
Yes, definitely. So we're engaging with government as well as a lot of key stakeholders across the recycling value chain. And as I mentioned a while ago, as consumers become more aware of how to be more sustainable, then these organizations follow suit. And we collaborate with all of these stakeholders across the recycling value chain on a wide range of activities. So when we refer to the recycling value chain, this doesn't only include the government, of course, but this also includes the recyclers, the consolidators, the junk shops, NGOs, even our customers, the brand owners, and also end consumers, and everything in between. And it's quite a range, to be honest, but we see this as necessary because we need to have a holistic view to ensure that beverage cartons, or used beverage cartons, UBCs for short, flow freely through the materials recovery stream and are collected and recycled.
Okay, how much of the beverage cartons are actually being recycled, and how has this changed from before? Is it 100%? What are your targets here? How much do you manage to collect back from consumers, and what's the process here when I throw my carton in my trash? What's the probability that that will actually be recycled? What's the probability that the one I'm drinking is actually coming from a recycled plant?
All right, so that's a great question. So let me chop up that question into the portions, right? So with regards to the collection volume, so as of latest data, we've already collected and recycled 1,000 tons of beverage cartons in the previous year. But
Okay.
and previous years, year on year, we have these targets that we really work for in order to have that neutrality and in terms of recovery and collection. Now, with regards to the second part of your question, like what exactly happens to the cartons? How exactly does this end up at the recycler? So as I mentioned a while ago, we're working with different stakeholders. So this is the junk shops. These are the consolidators. Specifically, we work with a paper consolidator because beverage cartons are a paper-based material. And at each junction or at each point of these stakeholders, we educate them. We figure out, okay, what are the bottlenecks of the recycling value chain that we have for beverage cartons here in the Philippines, and we come up with solutions. And we come up with solutions and programs for this to be able to flow freely and end up at a recycler for these to be turned into new recycled products. Now, for your third question or the third portion is, okay, so how exactly does one make sure that these cartons get recycled? So apart from working with the value chain, we also collaborate with different collectors. I guess you maybe heard of like green ants or plastic flamingo. So they are multi-material collectors, and we support each other with regard to the deployment of the different drop-off points in the metro and in the country. And so a good news as well is that we have recently expanded to Cebu with Smart Recycle via our recycler. So we're really, itching to, expand further and grow the collection network as much as possible, so that we reach our end goal of really collecting everything that's out there.
Okay, hoping for that zero waste mentality as well to penetrate, of course, the consumers when they do buy products using Tetra Pak. Thank you so much for those insights, Catherine Chua, Sustainability Manager of Tetra Pak Philippines. And that's a first look into the business day. Today's Thursday, October 28, 2021. Catch Business World Live for the market close. It's at 3:15 p.m. today. I'm Danie Laurel. Mask on, wash hands, stay safe, Philippines. We are One News.